Next is our 6.3 discussion and consideration of the community and economic development allocations of the California Community Development Block Grant. And I'm trying to, there we go. CAO's office. I know Susan's listed, but we have Ben Rickelman here, so if you'd like to come up, and whoever else is here to present with you. Looks like Jeff is here, Mr. Jeff Lucas.
Okay.
Good morning, Board. Ben Rickelman, Deputy County Administrative Officer. I'm here with Jeff Lucas with Community Development Services. This is with the state's Community Development Block Grant Program through the Department of Housing and Community Development for Economic and Community Development. The program requires 2 public meetings. This is the first one. The notice of funding availability hasn't been issued yet. The Department of Housing and Community Development's kind of internally pushed the date back a few times, but we have some confidence that it'll be released in August. So we'll be coming back to the board one other time to pass a resolution and decide what the allocations will be. This is more an introductory conversation.
Thank you. Annually, the Housing and Community Development Department with the state releases a notice of funding availability. The dates move around quite a bit, and so this is the first in a series of 2 where we provide information to the board and to the public about the program, the anticipated schedule of activities, and then give the board the opportunity for input on projects or programs that we should apply for funds for. The rules have not been laid out for us exactly for this year yet by the state. They are behind, as Ben said. It's not unusual for them, but we wanted to go ahead with this presentation in anticipation of the release coming out, and then that puts us in a good position to respond to it because we've had the opportunity to consider projects or programs that the county wishes to apply for. So that's what today's presentation is about. I know there's 2 new board members that haven't maybe been exposed, I guess is the word for it, to CDBG, or as some folks call it a black hole. I think the city manager for Clear Lake used that term at one point. But it is a good program. There are some things that we can and can't do with it. Last year we applied for funds. We were unsuccessful in obtaining money for the Economic Development Business Loan Program, which is a low interest loan program for businesses locally. We work with the banks on those things, but we were able to get $300,000 approved for the BUILD program for training through the NCO folks. You can use that money for tools, boots, equipment, and that kind of thing. So we just got the final letter on that yesterday. So that was about a year since we submitted the application. And Ben, I don't know if you want to add more as we...
Some preliminary ideas we have for CDBG funding within the economic development bucket is facade improvement program. There's been initial discussion of a microgrid analysis for commercial downtown areas throughout Lake County. So this would be an analysis for small scale solar installations, and the idea behind that is just the cost of energy. We have the second highest energy rates. It's a major impact, especially in rural communities where you have small businesses with fairly tight margins, and energy costs are projected to increase significantly in the next few years. So it's just going to become more of a problem. There's been initial discussions specifically with Kelseyville with one firm, but we think a broader analysis could be useful for other communities around Lake County. There's sometimes caps on the size of the solar installation for certain grant funding. So an analysis kind of in the 1 to 2 megawatt region for certain commercial strips could be of high value down the road. And then we've seen some solid success with the micro enterprise program and the low interest revolving loan program for small businesses. So that could be another activity that could be pursued. But we're open to suggestions from the board and the public, and that's, we're happy to take input.
So we're going to kind of go through the slides and to give you a little bit of background on what the program can and can't do, which then hopefully will help you make some determinations on what would be a good use of the funds for the application this year. So the purpose of the program is it's federal funds. In our case, it's channeled through the state of California. They layer on their systems, and then we compete for funds with all the other small cities and counties in the state. If you have a population of 200,000 or more, the funds are allocated directly to you through HUD. You have a direct relationship. You don't have to go through the intermediary, which is the state. They have set up their program for us, and it's competitive because we're competing with Crescent City or Cloverdale or some of the other smaller cities for a limited amount of funds. It is designed to provide decent housing, suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities, primarily for low and moderate income folks in the community. So I'll kind of move along here, hopefully. I think I just kind of explained what the Community Development Block Grant is. Eligibility. Oh,
a black hole.
Black hole. Thank you. I think he's right about that. So the eligibility is primarily for projects and programs that will impact and help folks who are in the low, moderate income level, which is a majority of folks in Lake County and most rural areas. The applications have to come through the county or the city. They can't come from a nonprofit or a for-profit entity when we're applying for the funds to the state. Now, the funds can be used for assistance to businesses that will in turn hire jobs, and those jobs then are provided to low and moderate income folks. But the way that works is the county or city would apply for the funds, set up a program, and then implement it, and then the loans are provided locally at like 1% fixed rate and that kind of thing. So we'll move on if there's no questions. The national objective, like we were saying, is benefit to low and moderate income persons. There's a variety of ways that they measure that. It's through jobs, it's through housing programs. Limited clientele is also an eligible group, which would mean veterans, disabled, seniors. That's where you see funds used for senior food service programs, Meals on Wheels, and that kind of thing. The final one that's not used very often on this list is the projects that have a particular urgency. The state is real hesitant to use that for their own reasons, I guess. But that is the rationale and the reason why we were eligible and why we did apply for funds after the Valley Fire for the hookups for the sewer laterals in Anderson Springs, as well as Cobb Mountain water system improvements that made a significant impact up there. Those are a couple of good examples. We have community development programs, which you can kind of read: public facilities, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, utilities for neighborhoods that have a low, moderate income. You can do blight abatement. There's a variety of things that you can see are eligible under that application or that activity as well. Under economic development, which the county has a pretty long track record with, there's what they call microenterprise assistance. That's really small business assistance. It's technical assistance to help businesses with 5 employees or less with access to capital, marketing, business planning, understanding cash flow, those kind of fundamental things that help small businesses survive and hopefully expand. You can acquire real property with it. For example, if the county wanted to purchase property for a commercial park, a development, and they had commitments from developers to come in and develop the property, and then the businesses would come in and hire folks that would be low, moderate income, that's another activity that's allowable under the economic development criteria. There's also planning and capacity building, which is called planning and technical assistance, and that's what Ben was referring to under that activity. It's where you do a study and a feasibility analysis to determine if there will be a benefit to low, moderate income folks by an activity that you're interested in entering into. And then at the very bottom, this assistance to and for private businesses, which again goes back to the business loan program. So current projects, we have the microenterprise program running now. That is not new CDBG money, but it's what they call program income. Over the years, the county's been pretty successful using funds for low interest loans to businesses. As that money is repaid, it goes into a special pot, and then you have to reuse it for a CDBG eligible activity. You can't use it for a general fund activity or something. So the county then asks the state, through an application process, this is what we'd like to do with the money. They approve it, and then in this case, we set up a microenterprise program, the county did. We also have had multiple business assistance loan programs through the what they called the CDBG CV, which was COVID money, the Cobb Mountain water systems, and Anderson Springs. And then in years past, the money was also used for parks improvements. Say in Nice, for example, in your district, that several of the parks were purchased with CDBG money, and then we made improvements to them because that was a low, moderate income neighborhood, as an example. I think we kind of just talked about, or I did, program income. And then we've got the notice of funding availability coming up. The state has said it would come out in July, so that's why we think August. And we just wanted to be ready for it by going through the process of providing additional information to you folks and then getting input from what you think might be good projects or programs to pursue. Last year, they allowed for up to $3.6 million per county so that we could apply for up that total amount, but they broke it down into subsections so that if you went for a housing program, for example, you could apply for up to 1.5 million, or an economic development program, you could apply for up to 1.5 million. Public services was up to 300,000. So these are last year's rules, but they haven't told us if they're going to change those or not, but I think we can kind of think in those terms, and it would be reasonable to do so because they haven't changed that too much over the last several years as far as the amount of funds that you can apply for different activities. Ben, do you want to add any more?
Just with construction projects with CDBG, they do have the requirements that the project is shovel-ready. So you need to have all the environmental, if it's NEPA, CEQA, and then the engineering documents all have to be submitted to get approval for funding.
One project that we looked at several months ago as a possibility for board consideration was the streets in Lucerne. That's a low moderate income census tract area, and the public works director at that time was looking at accessing funds to make improvements to those roads. And I'm originally from Lucerne, and I know those roads could be improved just like so many others, but that would be an example of a project that you could do if the engineering and design and budget had been worked up and the NEPA, the process had been completed. I think there was, I'm not sure what happened exactly there, but that would have been a good eligible project as an example.
There was supposed to be a discussion with Lucerne Town or the Central Region Town Hall when I had talked to the Public Works Director. Plus, there was also discussions about one-way, and that was probably something that one-way roads.
Oh.
A one-rate, yeah. So that kind of made it where I was like, you need to talk to the town, you need to talk to the people in Lucerne. You can't. We're not just gonna, plan for that without talking to them.
Now that would have very definitely been something to talk about. I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
I would just bring it up as an example of the kinds of things you can do. Again, and then just quickly, this is the anticipated schedule of events, having the community meeting today. Notice of funding availability, August, could be September. Then we'll have a month or so to prepare the application and put it all together. And what happens is the state will open up a date. They'll say, okay, you're noticed that you can apply, and in 6 weeks, here's the date that you can apply. And it's very competitive. And last year, it was like a 24-hour period, and then they said no more applications after that because they'd kind of gotten filled. Now, the problem is with that approach, they got a bunch of applications, but not all of them were that good. So that created more work for them, but that's just sometimes how they operate. So that's our anticipated schedule. The last thing I wanted to mention was that it does take quite a while for the approval process. For example, the build program, I think we submitted in maybe September or so last time, and we just yesterday got the final letter indicating we were approved, the county was approved for those funds. So that's to give you an idea of the timeline.
All right. Supervisor Sabatier?
Thank you for this. I have a number of questions, and thank you for the response as well. Too bad that we got denied. Did we learn something? Did we receive some comments to maybe better understand how to apply differently in this upcoming NOFA? Granted, it could be a different requirement or different criteria, but did it come back with any comments from HCD on how we can do better on our application when we got denied?
Oh, for the economic development element that was denied? Yeah, no, there wasn't any comments back on that. I think it had to do with the competitive nature of that activity allocation. That year or last year, there was a significant number of jurisdictions that applied for the funds. We have gone back and looked at how we can improve the application for this year. And so we'll be doing our homework and be more competitive. And the other thing is to get it in a timely manner. I'm not sure if you folks recall last year how they had scheduled monitoring for the Cobb Mountain grant that was completed years ago for the very time that we were to apply for the application last year. So they acknowledged that they had sort of double booked us and put us at a disadvantage in that regard.
Okay. My next question, or my next comment, I like the idea of the facade upgrade. To me, that helps with attracting possibly better economic outcomes for those businesses. I know that it's been maybe a side conversation, but attached to the roadmap task force and Copter, like you clean up the area and then you kind of spiff up the businesses in those areas that have been cleaned up, just to see if you can get a real return on the investment that we're putting into those communities by giving that little bit of shot in the arm. And so I'm very interested in that. The idea of the microgrid, our businesses are struggling with the energy bills that they have, but you only mentioned one business association. I would hope you go to all the business associations and kind of do a little tour and see what the best need is and what the impact assessment would be, so that we can make a decision as to where we should focus on. I do have a question about NCO. Love their program. What's your process with choosing NCO, and how did they get the funding that did? And remind me if we said yes to giving them the funding. I know we've seen them multiple times. I don't know if it was that specific CDBG funding, but did we do an RFP process? Because now there's multiple groups that are doing workforce development. Tara does some workforce development. Bill does workforce, and now there's the HEART thing that may occur, depending on the grant funding that may or may not come for Sutter. And so I just want to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity to make a request for some of these funds to be able to do their workforce development.
That is a very good question. It really is. So in the application at the time last year, NCO was implementing their build program with several sources of funds, one of which I think was county ARPA money, maybe. And so they, as a nonprofit, kind of have a leg up a little bit, because the county can enter into what's called a subrecipient agreement, wherein the county does not have to go through that RFP competitive process with other service providers. And so in order to take advantage of the points that you get for experience in implementing programs like Build, NCO had that, and so we wrote them into the application as the subrecipient of the funds, which provided the points that we wanted for their experience in doing that. However, the county can reconsider that approach, and if it decides it wants to go to an RFP process and look at other service providers for that, that's completely acceptable within the program parameters.
My personal opinion, if you don't mind, is yes, I would prefer going into another, because Lloyd would know better than me, but there can be a perceived conflict of interest that I don't want to get ourselves involved in. I know that they are a community action, but there are certain folks in the room that are board members, and if they are making those connections, I want to make sure that we're as free and clear as possible. And since there are multiple agencies that provide that type of work, I want to make sure they have that access. That's me personally. That's not the board speaking, but I'm just giving you my opinion on that. But I see that Mr. Rickelman wanted to make a statement.
Yeah, just regarding the microgrid analysis. So the community-specific one was driven by the Kelseyville Business Association, but if we were to pursue this with CDBG, it would be several different communities. The idea is to expand it and figure out kind of where across the county it makes sense to do this analysis.
Thank you. Then real quick, the loan program, it'd be great if we can get a report on, not necessarily unless that's possible, who has gotten a loan, but like how many loans, how many have defaulted, how many have paid back. I don't have any of that information. If it's possible to get that, that would be great.
Yeah, actually, well, it's probably a bit dated, but we can certainly provide that to you folks. That's
Just to see where we are.
Oh, yeah. We haven't done, the loans have been, that loan fund's been exhausted for a couple of years now, but that information is certainly available, and we'd be happy to share it.
Okay.
As part of the grant closeout reports that we do, and we could provide that information. If I could go back to the NCO question that you had, I am on the NCO board, but I mean, I'm able to separate out my roles and responsibilities.
And again, I said perceived, I didn't say real.
I know. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of what you were.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And my last comment is the industrial park. Very interested in that. I think that has economic highlights, just at least in my mind. Is there a feasibility study? Can we get funding to do a feasibility study on where to do an industrial grant, whether that's in some random area that would be feasible, the airport property or other areas? But I think we would need to start there. Is that a possibility, so that then we can go into, if the feasibility study proves positive, to go into engineering and designing and then looking for the construction funding with a shovel-ready project?
It's absolutely a possibility. In fact, over the years, we've looked at that site. And in fact, many years ago, the road off Highland Springs Road to what was Workrite, that was a county project that we utilized grant funds to build that road. So it's been looked at, and absolutely, yeah, you can do that. It might not be that site, it might be others that you have in mind. But Ben probably has other thoughts on that.
Oh, I was just going to quickly add, with the recently passed SB 131, the state budget bill, there is now a CEQA exemption for advanced manufacturing in zones that are industrial. So, you know, of one project in Lake County it's going to make it move quicker. So it could be something that tips the balance for investment in industrial zones.
And I know that we have Director Turner from CDD in the back. I know we have some planned development commercial zones throughout the county, and maybe that's a place to start, but I would love to see the industrial park being looked at as a possibility for this. Thank you.
Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question about, you had mentioned that some of this had been used for parks improvement or development over on the North Shore. I don't know if any of our current parks projects would be anything that would be eligible, but I was curious about that.
So I plan to check with all the directors that manage construction projects for the county. So if they have projects that qualify, so they have to have those pre-development qualifications, all the planning, and the environmental processes complete. But if they do, it would be a great opportunity. With how the money's kind of divided, at least it was in the previous NOFA, we'll see when this one comes out. There is a bucket of money that can only be used for construction, public facilities improvements. So it'd be great to apply for that funding.
All right, I appreciate that. I thank you for looking into that too.
Director Turner, I see you came up. Would you like to?
Thank you. I appreciate the direction of this conversation. And I just wanted to add that in our meetings last year with the local area plan advisory committees, Kelseyville is interested in setting up an industrial area in the former gravel extraction location. So we've already identified in the community an interest in developing that. I'd be happy to work with Ben and Jeff further in the future. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, I noticed, or I remember during this discussion talking about the business associations, and you've already met with some of them, or you're going to continue to go further?
Yeah, we've met with several of them, but
Mike?
We didn't want to go too far into things until we had this meeting to make sure we were
Yeah.
on the right track.
Yeah, because Andy was just at the NSBA, and but this wasn't a topic, but it would be good for them to have this information when it comes forward. The other thing, I'm glad you mentioned the Copter and Roadmap Task Force, because during that initial stages, one of the one of the initiatives was to ensure that there was some facade enhancement or something like that. So maybe this could be part of that. I know, I'm not sure if there was any projects or any anything that followed through on it. I don't remember, but it would be good to have that when it comes to some of the businesses on the Highway 20 or anywhere else that has that cross section or yeah.
Well, at this stage, we're thinking it would be great to have it for any unincorporated area
Yeah.
in the county. And one of the ideas that we've been talking about too is if you have a loan trust business loan program, a component of it can be the facade improvement program. So that particular part of the overall loan program can be targeted specifically for facade improvements, and then the criteria can be a little more flexible because many of the businesses are leasing space. And if they're going to be taking on some debt, you want to make it as flexible as possible as far as repayment or even forgivable loans. Because while they're making the improvements to the property, they don't own it in many cases. Now, in some cases, the owner of the building also owns the business. But there's quite a bit you can do with the program to where you can provide loan funds. You do all you can to make sure that the business is going to survive and continue. And then under certain conditions, you can forgive the debt after a certain period of time. That's not our decision
Right.
to set it up that way, but I'm just talking about alternative
Just
ways
giving the
you
alternative,
can
yeah.
do it, other jurisdictions or.
It's good to have a vast knowledge of how this
Yeah.
can be worked out.
The downside of forgivable loans is then you don't have money coming back in,
Right.
then you can't do other projects or programs.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So many projects, and this is phenomenal. So it's exciting to see what we can do and making the most of it. But I know that it's pretty broad, and so I can see everybody's wheels turning, going, I know we have some projects down in our area. I know that the roads would be, you'd mentioned on the east side of the lake, roads. There's just so many projects. So thank you.
Just have to make sure we remember that. I'm sorry. We have to make sure we remember that. Had to move the microphone. That the projects like that have to be in a low, moderate income area.
Sure.
So that you're not tied to a job creation necessarily, but rather just the benefit is to that neighborhood that has at least 51% low, moderate income, which is a majority of our neighborhoods.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. I'm going to open it for public comment. Come on up, Shannon.
Good morning, Board. Shannon Walker-Smith, Deputy Community Development Administrator. I just wanted to echo a couple of points in terms of the Copter, Roadmap Task Force turning into Copter and all of the work that we've been doing in that community. We're about a year in. I think we've made significant progress, and I'd like to echo the thought of following that up with some economic development money that would help revitalize that community. In addition to that, I know Lisa's not here today, but we also are very interested in doing housing rehab, either in some communities or in multiple communities. But I think Nice and Lucerne make an excellent place to maybe start a project over there doing housing rehab, and that money, this grant could also fund a project like that. A couple of things I wanted to say. It's really important that there are several pots of money when this NOFA comes out, and we can apply for multiple, but we have to be really thoughtful about it. So I think that's just something to pay attention to, that like we don't want to be competing against each other, and that, we should be taking a look at the whole and seeing how to maximize the pots and apply, because you can only apply for like one construction project, one public services project, right? So we have to be thoughtful about that. And lastly, just as a point of clarification, it wasn't mentioned in the presentation, but you're probably going to be hearing about it more as time goes by. We also applied for, I think it was at the very beginning of 24, Ben, and we just are getting now these standard agreements for the funds that came in through a special CDBG NOFA that was mitigation related. So Ben applied for a project, Terry applied for a project, and we did, and we're funding a 2-officer mitigation team that are going to focus on substandard housing and hazardous vegetation work. And I forget what the other projects are doing, but because you're going to hear more about those projects going forward, and we're all going to be saying CDBG, I just wanted to clarify that there are 3 other projects that we have been able to bring in funding for, and that was a special NOFA that was related to the 2018 fires, and we qualified for that money specifically. So you'll be hearing more about those projects going forward, because I think we're all getting started on those now. And just lastly, we're here in support of Ben and economic development and the CDBG grant, and be happy to work together going forward on whatever the board would like to see us apply for. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier?
Ms. Walker-Smith, I do have a potential question for you. I'm under the impression that we are contracting with Mr. Lucas to handle CDBG as a whole, where we shouldn't be competing against one another. We should be in the know of what we're all trying to attempt to do, so that we don't take over someone else's hope, or we should prioritize what are all the projects rather than individually doing it in our own silos. Is that what's happening now, or is that what you're offering that we do from now on? Because I want to make sure that we're working together and not stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah, definitely. I've had multiple conversations with Jeff over the years, in that with the mitigation NOFA that came out, we all did our own writing on that. And Jeff it was my first time writing CDBG grant. He was very helpful and supportive of that process, and always is there to, be helpful, answer questions. As we move forward with this process and this timeline, I think that some good conversations between community development, economic development, and housing would be appropriate.
Okay.
We could do better on coordinating our efforts, and always, you can always do better. And so you want to keep up with what all the other parties are doing. So, as was just alluded to very nicely, so that your projects and programs don't conflict or compete, but they're complementary, and they work together with an overall plan that the county board has set for the use of these funds. And so that's a great question and a wonderful opportunity for us to work on maybe having regular quarterly Zoom meetings or something, to where I can keep up, because sometimes folks move ahead with things because it's a good idea, and then you're not aware of it. I'm not saying that's happened. I'm just saying that that's a good question, and we could improve our communications in that regard.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Come on up.
Good morning, Board. Margot Kambara. This is an exciting opportunity. I have a few comments and suggestions. First off, it was mentioned about the small-scale solar. Great. Cut our dependence on fossil fuels, reduce our our costs in general, operating costs in general, may I suggest heat pumps, not only for business, but for residential? I have read that municipalities are encouraging residents on entire streets to convert to heat pumps and also switch from gas ranges to electric, more electrification. And since they're doing it on a street-by-street basis, you can leverage economies of scale, and that drops the cost tremendously. But more and more, we reduce our carbon footprint, we rely more on renewable energy, and we cut our energy bills. So terrific. So I suggest that we look at that. In terms of planning and capacity building, and Supervisor Sabatier's interest in industrial parks and Kelseyville's interest in industrial parks, may I suggest a program similar to BUILD that would be more than 2 or 3 birds with one stone, and that is, what if we in Lake County could develop a program that is providing a modular approach to building low and moderate income housing using low fire materials like rammed earth and other technologies. And in addition to that, parallel to that, go to a modular building concept. And that could be done on the industrial park, where these modules, these panels, can be constructed there, but the construction is done on site. So that is economic development for the county. It's also an opportunity for workforce development. So I think that would be very exciting. It would be challenging to get all the, get everything tucked together before November, but perhaps we could start, and I would be very interested in helping in any way I can. I would also like to voice support for Supervisor Sabatier's suggestion that we open this up to the RFP process, because it is important for us to have transparency and for everyone to have a fair opportunity to take part in this program. And I would also like to say that Ms. Shannon Walker-Smith's suggestion about opening up this grant opportunity to housing rehabilitation would be very positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? No. All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Any final comments? No? All right. Supervisor Sabatier?
I do have a question about the RFP process. I know that you kind of suggested that it's kind of up to our guidance to you. I guess I want to bring that back to the board and see, do we want to provide any guidance or keep going as before? What's the, you know where I stand on that, just looking to see if there's any other opinions on that.
I think he wanted to say.
I heard something. Susan?
Thank you, Chair. The one thing I'd like to offer the board to consider is to give staff the flexibility to either do the RFP or the other route, just based on the NOFA, opportunity, capacity. You know, if you restrict it to just one path, that could eliminate opportunity. I just want to make sure staff has the ability to make that decision. We will, of course, strive to make it competitive, but in some instances, I think we need to have some flexibility to choose the best path to have the most opportunity.
All right.
I'm wondering if maybe an RFQ is better, like who can do workforce development, and then what fits with what we're trying to get accomplished.
It could be an RFP, an RFQ, or
Which is much more simple than an RFP
recipient.
itself, where it's
Yeah.
very specific about a full project rather than a capability.
Ben?
Yeah, I was just thinking, without the NOFA, it's kind of hard to make this determination, and so an RFQ might be the appropriate path forward.
All right. So I think everyone's okay with the RFQ.
Yeah, and then you get the flexibility within the RFQ of who qualifies.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. thank you very much. This is a presentation, so thank you again for this information, and I'm sure if there's other questions, we'll come and find you.